Hi, Rita. Can you hear us from in the room?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Can we try that one more time, please?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I
Thank you
can
so
hear you loud
much.
and clear, in fact.
Okay, awesome. We're working with our volume here.
Okay, cool. Let me know if you need
Thanks.
anything else. Yep.
Okay, thank you for your help.
Will you bring my cane up? Do you see it down there?
This might be a little too loud. Casey. Too loud. I'm not even talking. 8. You hear me? That sounds better. Cool. Thank you. Welcome everyone to the March 31st regular BOT meeting. Macy?
Thank you. It's 7:02 p.m. Mayor Billy,
Here?
Trustee Corvalon,
Here.
Trustee Larson,
Here.
Trustee Maris. Here. Trustee Miller,
Here.
and Trustee Jocelyn.
Here.
Thank you. I'd like to note for the record that Mayor Pro Tem Sterling is absent this evening.
Thanks, Macy. Appreciate that. With that, we'll go to the consent agenda. Any questions on that?
The Forest Service permit, are we on track for that?
Yes.
Good. Then
Good question,
glad
great
to-
answer.
glad to give you permission.
Move to approve consent agenda.
Second,
Macy?
Trustee Larson,
Yes.
trustee Maris. Yes. Mayor Billy,
Yes.
trustee Jocelyn,
Yes.
trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
and trustee Miller.
yes,
Thank you.
Thanks. With that, we'll go to our first action item, the 2025 Colorado Wildfire Resilience Code.
Mayor and trustees, we talked about this a few weeks ago. On July 1st, 2025, the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code Board adopted a new 2025 Colorado Wildlife Resiliency Code pursuant to state statute. It requires us to, which we are designated as a wildland urban interface, and we must adopt a compliant code by April 1st, 2026. Britt has been working with Attorney Madsen and Fire Marshal Jocelyn to come up with a version of the code that works for Netherlands. We introduced this to you a few weeks ago, and since that time, there have been just a few updates to what you've seen. The first is the effective date of the ordinance, which will be 30 days after our publication, giving us the defined implementation timeline. There is a new section that has been added that clarifies how this code interacts with other applicable regulations. It says that in cases of conflict, coordination will occur with the CWRC, which is the Colorado Wildfire Interface Code, the International Building Code, the International Residential Code, and the International Fire Code. It removes the vinyl siding exemption, which allows vinyl siding under certain conditions, and that was deleted, meaning that it is no longer permitted where that exemption previously applied. And then finally, it revises the authority of NFPD, the Netherlands Fire Protection District, which previously allowed the district to issue stop work orders when fire protection systems were impaired or removed without authorization. That authority is no longer included in the code that is before you. In Britt's staff report, there is a recommended approval. There's a recommended ordinance and then an ordinance that allows you to add conditions to it if you'd like. We're available to answer questions if you have any for us.
Thanks, John. Any questions? Any clarifying questions for John or Britt? Is Britt online?
She is not.
Okay, and for John?
Can I just clarify?
I am.
one-
Oh, sorry, Britt.
Sorry, I just want to clarify one thing related to the revision to the authority of the Netherlands Fire Protection District. It removed a section which allowed the district to issue stop work orders when the fire protection systems were impaired or removed without authorization. It removes it from this code, but this authority exists in the fire code, correct?
Britt is here, so she's available for your questions.
Any questions for Britt?
am I conflating issues on this, the stuff that had all the setbacks in it that was related to this?
That's for the ADU state code.
Okay, not related.
Nope, that'll be next meeting.
So I do have a question. So we removed the NFPD authority in this code, but it still exists in our fire code. So there's two codes basically. Do they end up lining up pretty well, or is there overlap or gaps? Maybe that's an Andrew question.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about this a little bit. They interact very well. It was actually, sorry, hot mic. It was based on the international WUI code, which is the same folks that made the ICC, the IBC, the IFC code suite. So they all function very well together. They're all organized in the same manner. The reason why we wanted to remove it from here is because it's specifying protection systems, which not just a stop work order in general for a permit or something, but say a sprinkler system or something like that, which I felt was covered under the IFC and it was just redundant.
Okay, cool. So you all kind of, the fire department went through this and just got
Absolutely.
rid of redundancies. really.
Absolutely. Yeah, we worked really hard on this together, all of us, and I'm very pleased with the way that it came out.
Thanks, Andrew.
Can I just add one other thing, just for everyone's knowledge? This does, the legislation which requires adoption of the code by April 1st of 2026, it actually says that the code needs to be effective on July 1 of 2026. But just so everybody knows, there is legislation that was introduced that is currently going through the legislative process right now that would change the adoption date to April 1 of 2027. But we did talk about it internally and thought that we're ready to bring this forward. The fire district has looked at this and we just thought we're ready, so we might as well move ahead.
Yeah, this is kind of taking things that already exist in our code and just cleaning it up. And I would argue that this actually looks better and flows better than our current code does for the amendments that we have for our municipal code for similar things such as this. So we already have it. This is a good step forward for us. Our neighbors are moving forward with it. And we'll be in a good position to adopt future codes as well.
We adopted tonight with an active date of July 1st, and then the legislature pushes that to April 1st. Does that change our effective date or still is July 1st?
We actually, and this was a conversation with Fire Marshal Jocelyn, that we talked about. Initially, we had, I think, a June 30th effective date, but we just said, let's move this to the typical 30 days after publication, only because, we're ready. We already have a similar code in place, so it's not a huge change for builders and residential construction. But so the legislation will not affect it.
So what if we pass this tonight, whatever the state does is irrelevant to us?
Correct.
Beautiful.
More clarifying questions before we go to public comment? If not, we'll go to public comment. There is no one in the room, so folks online, if you have any comment on the adoption of the 2025 Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code, now's the time. Seeing and hearing no public comment, bring it back to the board for discussion and motions. The recommended motions are on page 22.
I just want to say, Andrew, I appreciate your experience and knowledge here. That's very reassuring. If you want to do the honors, you should.
I move to approve ordinance 887, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Nederland, Colorado, adopting by reference the 2025 Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code and amending sections 18.1 and 18.2 of Chapter 18 of the Nederland Municipal Code and adopting penalties for violations.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. More discussion. Macy?
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
trustee Jocelyn,
Yes.
trustee Larson,
Yes.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
trustee Maris,
Yes.
and trustee Corvalon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all. The motion passes. Appreciate that. With that, we'll go to our next action item the evening, which I'm scrolling to the long way, which I believe is the discussion about board compensation.
Well, Mayor and Trustees, as you know, on March 3rd, we started a policy conversation regarding board compensation for future terms of office. On March 17th, which was our last meeting, we started looking at some of the different kinds of compensation structures, fiscal considerations, and different participation options for the town benefits so that you guys could think about what a framework for that might look like. Tonight, you have before you a draft ordinance 889, which would amend section 225 of the Nederland Municipal Code, as well as a structured framework to help guide decisions on this component. I want to make one note about this staff report. I wrote it differently than I normally do. This has been a complicated conversation, as you might remember from last time. And so what I would like to do is kind of walk you through each section, pause for questions as we get to that point, and then see if we can think about them individually as you go. Obviously, this would apply if when you make your decision, you can make a decision to adopt or not adopt a compensation structure. And then any of these elements could be added or removed. So I also tried to make my motion for you, suggested motions, easy to modify. So what I wanted to do is start by talking about fiscal and administrative considerations for this. And the truth is that it varies wildly depending on how you set this up. The base compensation impacts are very predictable. We know that in like the mid-range scenario, which is what the staff recommendation is if you do decide to go with the compensation increase, it would raise compensation about $24,000, which would include payroll taxes, which are a little bit more than 7%. Actual costs vary depending on like what other structures are selected. If it's a retirement plan, people can contribute a variable rate. If it's a medical plan, there's different medical contributions that may happen. So we're not really able to fully estimate what the increase would be for those costs. But what we do want to say is that any changes would apply to future terms of office, and we would phase those in over time as positions turn over on the board. There will be some additional administrative time that is needed for payroll, benefit administration, and reporting. I do think that the change we're talking about is relatively insignificant. And so I'm just saying I don't think that that's going to be a huge deciding factor for you. One other thing that I wanted to talk about is like the administrative procedures, the cost allocation across the funds and how we would do that, and the tax compliance are things that need to be implemented by staff. What we would do is take the ordinance that you create, if you do so, and we would work to operationalize them through our normal budget processes and administrative processes. And then we'd bring back any decisions that you might need to make relative to that.
Good. Would it be okay if friends came over for a little bit?
Yeah, it's totally fine, Leo, but you know.
Hey, Tanya, do you mind muting? Sorry. Girly.
Just one last point, I already told you guys this, but you guys serve all the enterprises of the town. So that means our water fund, our wastewater fund, our community center funds. All of those things are things you work on. So I think it's reasonable to allocate those costs across our different funds. As you know, we have several of them. And that is something that we'll address through the budget process. That's something we need to look at and make sure that we have a good methodology for that's good for the audit. And that's something we'll always do. And then bring that back for you for discussion. I told you about how I was thinking about approaching this conversation. Do you guys have any questions about just the general kind of admin piece of this or any of those costs that we can anticipate or when they might take place? Okay.
So yeah, John's going to kind of go step by step here. And so we'll ask clarifying questions along the way. So we kind of
I guess
compartmentalize.
maybe I do have one clarifying question that kind of fits in the administrative side. Trying to stay away from my mic a little bit. Is the town currently still running at a several $100,000 deficit on our budget this year?
Currently, yes.
Okay.
We will have a supplemental that could change when we do that, but for the moment, we're still in the same budget situation we approved in December.
Okay.
And then, do we have an estimate in here on actual impact, considering that this would only apply to new positions?
I can't really provide that because I don't know what all the elements are.
Right.
That's something that we could update over time, I think, as we know how that looks, especially after the ordinance is created, we could do that. We know that there will be at least, we know that we have what the seats that we have open are.
Right.
And so we know under our current compensation plan, the mayor makes $250 a month and he makes $3,000 a year. and trustees make $150 a month for $900 total, $10,800 a year. So the increase here would only be for the newly seated members. So if there's a change in a seat, that's when this would take place. And so that also is variable at the moment. So it's a little difficult to say specifically. In the compensation structure that we recommended in the staff report, we can break that out on a monthly basis. And I think it would be starting in the May pay period is when that would take place.
Right, so in,
But it's variable.
theoretically, if we had we have three seats open, that will open. So if we had all three of those seats filled, we'd have three people on this new pay structure for the next 2 years.
Correct.
Am I understanding that right?
Right, we'll have the mayor
Right,
and 3 trustees minimum.
right.
The mayor regardless of?
Yeah, because the
Okay.
mayor's being elected new next week.
Right.
And
So it's
then
it's just a new term period.
3 trustees minimum, possibly a 4th trustee.
Like 2 trustees minimum, possibly a third.
No, we have 2 trustees on the ballot. One position's gonna be filled. Were trustee Sterling to win the mayoral, then we'll have to fill hers as well. So that's 4 trustees and a mayor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Thanks for clarifying.
You guys have any questions about this part of it?
No,
Okay,
or I don't, do you? Tanya, do you have any questions about the base compensation? You might be frozen up unless you're very still. Oh, no, you aren't. Okay. Do you have any questions about this? This section, the base compensation section of this discussion? We're just, I don't know if we can hear you. We're just breaking this part piece by piece and going, clarifying questions for each piece. Can you hear us, Tanya?
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, yeah, no worries. I just wanted to make sure, I wanted to make sure
Oh,
you had
no,
a
I
chance to
don't
tell
have any questions.
questions.
I already know how I feel about the whole situation.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
okay. Well, I told you about our current compensation structure. That's existed since 2014. And recently, we just looked at some of the comparative data and general compensation ranges you had. I cleaned that up a little bit in this staff report. I was thinking about like in terms of effort, but I really think what it really matters here is when you compare yourself to other communities, there's a low, medium, and high band for what those salaries are. So that's where I tied them out in the staff report. I think really the first policy question I wanted to pause on for you is, should base compensation be adjusted for future terms of office? And if so, at what level? We did some analysis that really kind of builds on what we did before and provided you with several compensation scenarios, really 4 of them. The first one is if we just look at inflation since 2014 when this happened, we would see rates for the mayor would be making $337.50 a month for $4,050 annually. The trustees would be making $202.50 per month and about $24.30 annually. Kind of the bottom of that comp range, we see the mayor would be making about $600 per month, trustees about $400 per month. That equals $7,200 annually, and then $4,800 each for the trustees annually, for a total of $28,800 for the trustees alone, plus the $7,200 for the mayor. In that kind of middle range, the mayor would make approximately $800 per month for $9,600 annually. The trustees would make $500 per month for $6,000 annually and $36,000 total for the trustees. And then the top end of that range, and this is also one thing to know, there are communities nearby, such as City of Boulder, that make significantly more than this. But in terms of towns that are more similar to Netherlands, the top of that range is about the mayor at about $1,200 per month, $400 annually, and trustees making about $800 per month or $9,600 annually. On the conversation on the 17th, I think the direction we had was to support a CPI-based adjustment or range 1. The ordinance before you tonight is at range 1. It's important to note that you guys can pick any compensation level you want. These are very illustrative of just what the math looks like. I did make a staff recommendation here of that range 1 if you do choose to raise the compensation, and included several questions that you might consider. Mostly just which of the following approaches should be applied, like no change, CPI-based adjustment, range 1, range 2, range 3, or something different that you guys select during conversation.
Thanks. Appreciate that, John. Any clarifying questions for John in this section?
All right. The next section I've got for you is the implementation of the ordinance. And I think that this was a point of conversation at our last meeting. You have to make sure that compensation changes happen for the next future term of office, which we've already talked about. And so I think really the structure here depends on how you want to do that. You could write the ordinance to have an effective date different than this election. But I think that when we look at how this works, implementation would occur as positions turn over. I think having a really clear timing framework makes for better transparency and avoids uncertainty when changes do take effect. I think aligning implementation with the next regular election cycle is the most common and administratively straightforward, which for us would be this next election that's happening on April 7th. I did think a little bit about what if you did this at a later time? What if you pause it for a year or 2 years? I think one of the things that we know from our conversation the other day is that you guys would like to review this at a time frame that makes sense before the next election. I think that's something we want to add to our board calendar at all the time moving forward. So I think that could happen. If you wanted to do this, that would be the next time this takes effect, to be in 2028, unless there's turnover on the board in between. And so I think what I recommended to you is that if you do choose to do this, you would just do it at the start of the next term of office after this next regular election. But again, that's a choice for you when that next compensation structure would take effect.
What are the administrative challenges in saying like the 2028, like basically after everybody who is currently serving now is that those terms would all be finished as of 2028? Like what's more difficult about that than just turning it?
I don't
over this
think it's
thing?
more difficult. I think it's it might be a question for that board that sits next, because that would be in the next cycle. And I think that that's really a qualitative thing. If you guys wanted to make that choice, you certainly could. From a staffing perspective, I think the key would be is making sure that we get the ordinance implemented and then do the administrative pieces. And so we always appreciate when you give us a little bit of a runway to make those things happen. But that being said, I think we can implement it. From our perspective, I think it's a similar workflow either way.
John, this is Tanya. Have you guys considered any kind of merit-based pay increases based on project completion, you know, even if it's not successful, but bringing things to the board, you know, championing ideas and putting the effort in this at all? Because I mean, when am I to actually try pay people here like this is an actual job, then I feel like we have to be bringing in serious matrix into expectations, workload, and like a more of an organized fashion where, you know, every one of us is responsible for a certain thing every month. And if that doesn't happen, you know, or if it does happen, have you thought about any, you know, having a base pay that could be bigger than what it is now, but paying based on effort? Because we know that everybody's going to have different bandwidths and ability to work on projects.
We haven't thought about it in the terms that you just mentioned, but we have talked about there might be a reason in the near future to have some board ethics and guidelines put into place that do dictate kind of the responsibilities of board member. I am not positive if a merit-based increase is possible under state statute, but
Okay. Yeah, just like I'm not concerned if we increase pay a small amount, but if it starts becoming, you know, where we're getting like $50-$60 an hour, I would expect some more results than what we've been getting, right? So that's all. That was just my question. Thanks.
Can I address that? So I do think that a merit-based pay situation would probably not be lawful under Colorado law. Just because you would then be increasing an elected official, appointed official's pay during their term, which is prohibited by Colorado law.
That makes sense. Good suggestion.
Okay, thank you
That'll
for
make
that.
sense.
Is there any more questions about implementation?
Timeline.
Okay. Retirement participation. This was a big point of conversation last meeting as well, and you asked me to confirm that this is possible, and it is. You guys are W-2 employees from the perspective of the town, and so you may participate in our retirement programs. It is also possible to create different participation levels for elected officials and different kinds of staff, as long as there's a test that those people in that class are different than another class. And when I say different, what I mean is, for instance, a seasonal full-time employee may have a different benefit structure than a full-time year-round employee. And so I think for you, the class of trustee is materially different than this class of employee. So the town can allow you to participate in the retirement program. That could be done on your own dime, essentially, where you would pay the town and then you would get those benefits that you select. Or you could allow the town to participate in your retirement benefits as well. And so for this section in question, really the only two questions are, should participation in the plan be allowed, which is also free for the town. It's just a matter of figuring out a structure. I think the biggest question is how we will handle separation if you separate out. That's, I think, the big administrative question. And then should the town provide a matching contribution? It's kind of what I said in my staff analysis section. I think allowing participation without a town match provides access to those retirement savings for those folks that do need that. And it is a really good plan without creating any kind of employer cost that's recurring. A town match would increase ongoing costs and scale upward with future compensation adjustments. And that's something to remember. Our plan costs go up every year. And so there is like maybe a 3 to 7% increase in those plans usually. So that's something to just think about in this context. So I recommended here that you do allow participation in the retirement plan without a town match at this time to provide access while limiting the ongoing fiscal impact. Again, that's something that could change. You guys can make the decision you think is most appropriate. But the two questions for you are whether to allow participation in the retirement program, whether to include a town match, and what that might look like. In a previous staff report, and I can provide this again, we can provide this information, but we do have what the town provides for the employees. But again, you guys would be a separate class of employee essentially. So that's something to remember here. I'm going to combine this with the medical benefits because it's very similar. You can absolutely participate in our medical and retirement programs. It's important to know, I was talking about retirement before. You can only contribute your deferred compensation. So you can transfer other money into the fund accounting, but you're not going to be able to match on that money. It would only count for the deferred compensation for the town. Medical benefits are a little bit simpler. You would simply pick your plan, and then we would need to establish procedures for billing, collection, and continuation of coverage.
So just to clarify, if we did the option one, $400 a month, that's the most you could contribute to either of these plans. You could only contribute the deferred
salary.
compensation. Is that?
Yeah. Correct. On the medical, it's a little bit different. You could contribute that to the costs of your plan, but what we would probably do from an auditing perspective is we would still cut you a check, or however you receive we don't really cut checks anymore, but for that process, and then you would pay the town for the plan that you select, whatever that is. And then if you did select to have a town contribution, it would just go on to that plan from that perspective. But that way we just keep all the accounting clear.
Right. So the health insurance plan, you would select a plan and you'd put your paycheck towards that plus whatever extra needed to be put in. For the retirement plan, you could only put in the amount of your paycheck. You couldn't put in extra.
You could, but I think like for the matching part, it would only be the town compensation, and anything extra you would put in through a different process. It wouldn't be through the same process.
Right.
What it is our plan is, we currently have a plan offered through Mission Square, which is a big government provider. We're going to switch, if you remember, in the fall, we switched to Colorado Retirement Associates. That'll happen relatively soon, and that has an Empower backend on the software piece. So you would have your own Empower retirement account, and you could manage it through their tools that they have,
Gotcha.
which includes transfers and all that kind of thing.
Right. So as long as we didn't do a town match, it's sort of
Yeah.
contribute as much as you want. Okay.
How much administrative overhead? I mean, you know, a trustee may be around for maximum of 8 years, 4 years, you know. That's like what? Well, if we go with the range one, $9,600. That they could, you know, if they dump their entire thing in. How much administrative overhead is there gonna be for the town in terms of like, okay, you're no longer a trustee, how do we close this out?
The way that it works on the CRA account is you can keep it with them for as long as you want. That's one of the reasons I wanted to select it for town staff, is because if you get vested in one CRA community, you're vested forever, no matter where you work. So you start at that new community vested, which is a huge benefit to our staff. The same would be true for you. So if you have money in there, it has that same effect. I don't know, I don't think this would, we haven't even really talked about vesting, I guess, within the context of this, but you could keep that account as long as you want. We're having a little bit of this happen now. We have several employees that are not active with the town, but still hold money through our accounts. And so there is a notification piece that has to happen to those people, and then all the fiduciary responsibilities. One of the other really big benefits of Colorado Retirement Associates is they take on the fiduciary responsibility for our retirement fund in terms of the reporting, diligence, and all of those kind of compliance issues. So I think it will be not insignificant, but not a huge task either.
Can this be combined with para, or is this a totally different company? But like, can you say you have retirement elsewhere? And how's that work when some of these employees, town employees move from municipality to municipality?
Typically, folks who have money in para leave it in para just because it's such a good program. If we were to switch, it could switch with them. If they have an account and they have money in para, there is processes to combine those funds. So I think that those things all would exist on the back end of our retirement provider. I think that's the big benefit. Our new retirement program is a significant upgrade from what we currently have.
It's a significant one. I'm sorry.
It's a big upgrade. I think the returns on, I have our plan and I also have a CRA plan. And my returns on investment on my other plan have been consistently 7 points higher since I've been here, which I think is just a matter of they're a local company that really actively monitors their money. The other thing is that they take a lot of, you know, everyone who's filled out retirement knows how complicated that initial process can be. And they really take a lot of that out. They say, what year do you want to retire, or what age do you want to retire? And then they help you manage your money based on that, which is, it's kind of cool. And then they have fiduciary advisors who will come. Currently, they don't come to Nederland to help our staff. We will have folks like that coming to town on a regular basis. And if you guys selected it, you would be eligible to have those meetings with those folks as well. So it's kind of there's a lot of benefits that come with CRA.
You're saying CRA is about 7% better than para, or than?
I have than Mission Square.
Okay.
Para is like their fund is a lot different, but that's also a really cool program that I wish that, you know, it's changed a lot in the last 10 years, but if we could participate, I think we would.
Yeah. Thank you. More, excuse me, more questions for John on retirement participation, clarifying questions? Tanya, anything? All right. Medical benefits?
All right. So on non-mandatory benefits, we discussed several of them, including community center access and potential, I'm just calling them potential future recreation related benefits. And so the question is really, should these non-monetary benefits be included in the compensation network? This is a space where it includes additional complexity because of the valuation of the benefit is something we need to think about for our audit and taxation purposes. There is administrative and reporting differences here that are money is a little bit easier to handle, to be honest. They also could create taxable compensation depending on how we structure it for you. So that's something I just want to mention. One of the things we do currently is we give all board members community center access as an existing benefit. And this is considered a fringe benefit because it's a community-owned facility. So because you're the board of trustees and it's a community-owned facility, that's how that works currently. We did talk about potential benefits at Eldora Mountain Ski Resort. Those are a little bit harder to define because it really depends on on how we value the season pass. And how that would work. And we just don't fully understand how such a benefit would be valued or treated for administrative and reporting purposes. We also, that acquisition hasn't fully occurred yet. And so I think it's a little bit hard to talk about it in absolutes, especially in terms of a moment that we need to like think about before it's given. And so what I'm suggesting in my staff report is we continue the existing community center access and defer any additional non-monetary benefits until valuation, tax treatment, and administrative process are more clearly defined. I know that's a difficult one because I think we want to make sure we have these community benefits from all the things we're doing in town. And I think for me, when I think about the community center, I think that's something we should continue. You've spent a lot of time since 2022 thinking about how we value our employees, and that comes with compensation. They also get community center passes, and there's been a lot of work done on treating them as whole people. And I think that same thing should go for you. Like you're a whole person and you should have access to this fitness resource we have. I also think this is another question about the other kinds of non-monetary benefits that could come up in the near future as those things become more defined. But for consideration, I just said whether to include non-monetary benefits, and if so, which ones?
Clarifying questions on medical benefits.
Okay. Advisory board recognition. We discussed stipends or recognition for advisory boards. And the question really is, should they receive compensation or other recognition as a part of this action? I think it's true to say that this does create an ongoing financial commitment and requires a consistent approach across all of our boards. And I think it also comes within the kind of the context of broader governance considerations that we've been talking about, most specifically with the boards and commissions ordinance of last summer, that need to be evaluated comprehensively as part of a future ordinance related to boards and commissions. For that reason, and also the reason is that you don't need to, there's not an election trigger here that would force you to only make this decision at this time. I think it might be better, considering that we've been talking about this in our strategic planning that we might do later, that this might be an element of that, to consider what compensation for advisory boards would look like at that time. So that's my recommendation to you, is to defer this topic to a future discussion in conjunction with updates to the boards and commissions ordinance. The only consideration here is whether or not you would like to defer this topic or to include it in the ordinance. That one I think is pretty basic. If you have questions, please stop me. But on the future adjustments, we had talked
Well,
about some
I had a
process.
question.
Oh, sorry,
Sorry.
Tanya.
Go for it.
Couldn't we offer them the community center? Or do we already do that?
You certainly could. I think it would probably for tax purposes count the same, but they're not W-2 employees. So it
Mhm.
would change the structure of their relationship with the town. And that
Okay,
was,
so it'd be difficult for you guys to figure that out with,
it would just take a little bit of time and conversation, but we could certainly do it. And I think when we talk about this, I think it should be something that, I think this boards and commissions ordinance needs to come up within the strategic planning and try to get this worked on and continued. And I think we could probably move it along relatively quickly.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Real quick, did you cover medical benefits? I think you might
I
have
did.
glazed over them.
I kind of combine them with
Okay.
retirement. It's basically the same. So retirement benefits, it's just the only difference is you can only really contribute your contribution from your paycheck on the retirement benefits. On the medical benefits, you would just select the plan you want, and then we would figure out the cost, and you might end up giving the town a check for those benefits. The thing that's complicated there is we probably would need to cut you a check and then you pay the town back whatever the cost of the benefits is. So it would be a little bit clunky, but probably the easiest process from the audit standpoint.
Okay, thanks.
On future adjustments, we had talked about how this might happen because the honest truth is 12 years is too long to look at compensation. This is something that should happen regularly. It does create a need for a larger future change. It's just pushing that change down the road where it has a bigger budgetary impact. So I think like incorporating a structured review process into what we're doing will improve transparency and allow compensation to be evaluated in advance of each election cycle, which I think is probably what you would want to do moving forward. We did discuss several strategies on March 17th to do this, such as setting regular meetings or possibly utilizing an annual CPI adjustment based on the Denver Aurora Lakewood Consumer Price Index, which is our metropolitan area. My recommendation is that we do establish a periodic review for these future election cycles. I think what we'd want to do is maybe think about that in the budget process the year before. the election is to happen. And then I also recommend here that you think about this CPI-based adjustment, which will allow, you know, you to increase at that rate of inflation, essentially. So the only question here is whether and how to establish an adjustment method.
So
There's-
John, sorry, just a quick question. So this periodic review, you think we should do it, but we shouldn't write it into the ordinance? It should be kind of a separate thing that we determine?
I think so. We can add it to we call it our agenda forecaster, but it's really our budget or our board planning calendar. And it can be added moving forward forever. And I think what we would do is just add this, like I said, to the budgetary process and bring it up during that period. And then we would just know, and then as we go forward, we'd also know the seats. So we can figure out the impact and make sure that we understand what that looks like for the budget. And that's when we do it for staff too. So I think it would kind of dovetail. Okay, in terms of the ordinance, there's a motion in my staff report. It has 5 modifier statements based on the section in the staff report. So there's the base compensation, implementation timing, retirement participation, medical benefit eligibility, and whether compensation should be increased. Those are all in the ordinance itself. So you see in the ordinance that we selected that range 1, and we suggested that you allow the community center access and then also allow participation in the medical benefit and the retirement benefit, but with no town match. And those things can all be changed. But in this motion, what I was thinking is you could say the motion with the modifiers that are based on your conversation, if you so choose to do. But if you have any more questions for me, please let me know, and thank you.
John, if we adopt this ordinance, does it go into effect 30 days after today?
Yes.
So is that after the new trustees are sworn in? And
Oh,
the new,
April 2nd.
and the mayor gets sworn in?
Macy's just said April 2nd is yeah, because that's
So,
yeah.
so that would be after
Right.
after the election and after the swearing in.
Yeah, we think as long as we pass the ordinance tonight, it's
Okay.
the intention. And then if it is challenged, then it would be challenged in that period.
Okay,
But yes, I think for our purposes, it's sufficient.
okay.
Any more clarifying questions?
Question.
Yeah.
Quick question about the medical. If we were to allow participation in the medical plan with no town match, is there cost to the town because of our total number increasing, or is it just going to kind of get lost in the noise of all our other new town employees?
I think that is the case, but Rita is also here. Rita, do you have a different opinion?
I was trying to understand what Trustee Larson was
He's
saying.
saying
Can you?
If
so-
we include 7 new members on the medical benefits with no match, does that increase our costs because our pool is growing?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that one.
I think
Because
it
you're
is gonna
right,
be-
because you're right, it would just
Yeah.
probably be, combined with everybody else. It's probably right.
We're changing pool. So one thing that's true is in May, our pool that we're in is going to change. We're currently in the small pool and we're going to the big pool. So it probably will be inconsequential, but we can bring back we can do some research on that.
Any other clarifying questions for John? Tanya, anything else for public comment?
No.
Now we'll go to
No, I
public
don't.
comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thanks. We'll go to public comment. There's no one in the room. Anyone online? Any public comment on board compensation? Seeing and hearing none. Close public comment. So thanks, everyone. We'll bring this back to the board for discussion. As with the clarifying questions, we're going to try to take this component by component so we better understand the board's position before we try to piece it together as an ordinance.
And to clarify, I will be recusing myself.
Thanks. And does that mean he probably wouldn't even weigh in with an opinion? He would
Right. And actually, you should probably leave the room. Yes.
We have something else coming up. Do you want to come back for the other thing? You can call in if you want, or come back or call in when you want. Thank you. Now you're talking. That was your plan the whole time. So we'll start with base compensation. The question here is whether base compensation should be adjusted for future terms of office, and if so, at what level? And we'll open it up for discussion.
I think at our last meeting, a few of us were divided, but we kind of landed on the inflationary increase or range one. I know, John, that you recommended range one, but I'm still leaning towards inflationary simply because of our current budget situation, especially since we're going to be revisiting this every 2 years potentially. So I haven't seen anything different tonight that would make me change my mind to range one so far.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest concern is just, our budget, adding additional things here. I mean, don't get me wrong, absolutely, we should be increasing this. Especially given the new things we're taking on as a town and as a board. But given those new things closing in a month and then uncertainties with that, uncertainties with the pool size change for the medical retirement, things like that, I'm just like, well, maybe we've got a lot of good research here. Let's say reassess this summer. And then taking a look at, okay, what makes sense then for all of these pieces, and actually kind of punt on the whole issue tonight is my kind of view. It's just, we don't have enough information yet. And, if we do it this summer, then all 7 members of the board can contribute and vote on it, because it will be taking effect on the next one, not, a week. I guess I just don't like the way this is feeling a little rushed. With this, coming up in a couple weeks and then trying to cram it in right before an election, just, doesn't feel right to me.
Thanks, Chris.
I should have asked this in clarifying questions. Like, if we don't do anything tonight, the next possible time when this would take effect would be April 2028. Is that, like, there's no other?
Yeah, unless another board member is seated, if there's an election that would seat a board member, that would be the caveat.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. So if we didn't pass this tonight, but say we pass it, in a month or two, anybody whose seat turned over would then have the new compensation.
Well, it basically just applies to the next term of office. So say we had, after the election and after the appointment, somebody moved away or something.
Right, and we reappoint someone else.
Yeah, it would apply to the new term of office.
So even if they're appointed.
Yes,
You-
please.
You can write the ordinance though, however you want.
Yeah.
If you want it to be in effect in April of 2028 for new positions, you can write it that way. Or if you want it to be in effect for anybody who starts a new term, then you can write it that way.
Thanks for clarifying. I should have asked that earlier.
Does that only account for the salary, the money? Because we talk about some non-monetary, being able to pay into the retirement. Could those things be adopted midterm? Because they are not compensation. If they're paying in without the match, to be clear, so there's no town payment.
So without a doubt, any type of, for example, a community center benefit, a ski resort pass, those would be considered emoluments, and that's what we're focused on is emoluments. I'm not sure if a access to a health insurance plan or access to a retirement plan without a contribution, I think that's probably okay. And it doesn't necessarily is something that has to be tied to a new term. I haven't done a lot of research on that though.
That is an interesting layer to this, right? Of saying, that, because that is in some respects like one of the more interesting benefits that, it doesn't cost the town much, but it does, or it doesn't, hopefully it doesn't cost the town anything, but, can provide, some incentive for people participating in the board, and if that we could separate that from election cycle, that is an interesting twist.
Particularly if it's an option for somebody to buy into our health insurance,
Right.
where if, you know, that, you know, given the United States, if that's a problem
Yeah.
and something holding out.
I know several people who would be more interested in considering a position simply because of that access, so.
But to be clear, that's something that needs legal research, and we should not probably base our decision on like, oh, we can adopt this in
Yeah.
October.
Right. Just to separate a little bit, I know we're sort of split on how much compensation, are we, to me, the level of compensation is very distinctly tied to when it takes effect. Like, because I feel like our budget this year, we already know is in a deficit, and yes, we might have a supplemental budget, but whereas in the future, you know, hopefully things are better. Like I would feel better about supporting a higher compensation range if it took effect at a later date. But as Tierney says, you know, we're talking about revisiting this on a more regular cycle. But if we don't do this tonight, at least compensation wise, it won't happen until 2028. So, I'm actually, leaning towards more towards the range one compensation with that longer term view, you know, that I know it's potentially a burden for this fiscal cycle. But, you know, as John said, there's a way to spread this cost across the various enterprise funds and not just out of the general fund. So that is more where I'm leaning. But I'm curious to get at least a few more opinions.
So I would say, you know, spreading across enterprise funds, you know, the wastewater, the water treatment. We already know we have massive expenses coming there too. So
Right.
spreading across there doesn't come for free. There's an
Right.
impact to that.
Right.
And, you know, we talk about the supplemental budget, you know, the supplemental budget. I can't imagine it's going to involve any great new sources of income, particularly with the loss of the Caribou Center, sales tax there. You know, I can't imagine it's going to, you know, paint us a rosier picture.
No, yeah,
than
no,
We are currently.
it's a good point.
Tanya, what are you thinking?
I'm actually agreeing with Chris on this one, and I would be willing to support inflation only if the rest of the board really wanted that, and I would also be willing to support only health and retirement fund with out of town match also, and I would be willing to support inflation with retirement and health with out of town match. But I'm also okay with kicking it down for 2 years or whatever, because we just aren't in any position to spend more money right now. But I mean, I do agree. I mean, I don't think inflationary, raising it to that's gonna draw more people in per se. But I do think the health insurance could be a big one. You know, for a lot of people, at least for a couple years, they would know where their health insurance was coming from. So that's important. And I do feel like I want to let people have access to this. This would have been really helpful, I'm sure, to a lot of us. And I'm not ready for any kind of serious pay increase other than inflation.
Thank you. Yeah, I kind of, I just kind of go back to our budget that we passed in 2025 for this year. You know, our 2026 budget being so far in the red that I think spending any money, increase the money for me just doesn't feel like the right thing to do. I feel like it's bad optics, doesn't look good in the general public's eye. And And I mean, for one thing, I feel like better compensation for trustees and the mayor is a good idea to get to. And I feel like it is a lot of work and it would be reasonable to be compensated more, and it would also attract people and maybe widen our demographic of who can afford to actually be on the board with time and money. And so in that way, I really think this is a great effort. I just think that the time is not now due to budget mostly. And part of me thinks, doing, looking to 2028. But even for me, at that point, I'd want to be seeing what our budget was looking like, as we're passing a budget at the end of 2027 for 2028. If we're looking like we're in the black, and we're in the black for for frankly, at least the amount that of new expense on this, then I'd be more in favor. I do like the idea of, without a match and without, any increase in compensation, the option to move into retirement or medical. I mean, I do like that idea, and that is something I feel like that could be the benefit for folks without spending more money. So
Just because I dislike fractional numbers, how do we, how do we feel about something like 350 and 250, or something that's a inflation only range, but slightly nicer numbers?
As
Well,
opposed to what? Like, what's the difference? Let me look it up.
Yeah,
Oh, 'cause you don't want
337.50
the
and
cents and, yeah.
202.50, yeah.
So 200 to 335 or something. Raise it $50.
Yeah,
for the
yeah, I mean,
trust-
something, rounded off nicely to
I mean, I
50
don't
or
think it really,
$25
yeah.
increments.
yeah, whatever. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a reasonable thing to do, and then have, the option to enroll in the retirement and health insurance benefit.
I would agree with that, 200 and 325, which is just under the inflation only. I guess responding to the ideas of kicking the can down the road, I get why, and I feel similarly because of the budget, but I also feel like the research has been done. We're here. We have at least one open trustee seat that needs to be filled. And I like the idea of just signaling to people that we value the work that people are doing here, even if it's just acknowledging that the salaries are increasing by inflation, right? That's minimal, but it's something. It's a signal to people that this position is valuable. So I don't love the idea of kicking the can down the road. Since we're here, we can make the decision with a relatively minimal impact on the budget. I think as minimal as we can make it. But just trying to get people in, I feel like doing something is better than doing nothing right now, especially since we have the research. Also, you guys, at the last meeting, we talked about this for like over an hour. So it doesn't feel that rushed to me anymore, simply because we've talked about it at 2 prior meetings. The last one was at least an hour, if not an hour and a half, which I think maybe Chris and Tanya missed. So you might have missed that kind of feeling of, all right, we worked through this and at least we have something and we're feeling okay about it. So that's just my thoughts about those things. But I do like medical, if we're skipping ahead to medical and retirement, it sounds like any impact on finances for town, as long as we don't match, are going to be minimal at most. It'd obviously be good to know the actual numbers of like how it would impact the pool. Well, it impacts the pool by adding 7 more people, but how it would impact the numbers there. But am I understanding correctly, John, that we think it's probably minimal at if anything?
We're about to do something really big. So
Yeah.
I think it is what it is, I think, honestly. I'm sorry I can't answer. We need more information from
Sure.
our folks first, but.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I feel comfortable enough with what we know now for supporting medical and retirement with no match, for sure. was all over the place, sorry.
No worries.
it's good.
You just jogged my memory of one thing we did talk about in that many long hour of conversation was, John, did you say that we could implement a automatic CPI adjustment every year?
It's in the current ordinance as it's written, and that would just take the index and then base it off of that.
Right, so that would increase compensation just automatically every year, regardless of seat turnover.
Yeah. And you wouldn't be
Yeah.
approving that, it would just be the number.
Yeah, it just happens. Yeah. I think that's that, combined with, just the CPI adjustment, like getting us to where we would have been, and then have that auto adjusting, that feels good to me.
But to clarify, even the CPI scaling or indexing would not take effect for Luke and I.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay, just want to double check.
Yeah, I think I'm still at like no increase whatsoever of money, but I would say starting in 2026, if people wanted to spend their money on retirement or medical, I'd be open for that. And then looking at the CPI in the future, it's kind of where I sit with it. I don't think these few dollars are gonna make a difference. We're probably gonna be out recruiting people, and chances are the people that are gonna come to be appointed, this won't matter. And so to me, in my opinion.
Billy, how would you feel about having the automatic CPI adjustment, but starting at our current salaries now? So
I think I'm basically looking at the suggested motion on page 37. I'd be more at base compensation at 250, 150, where we're at. Implementation timing being, May 2nd, a month after April 2nd. Retirement participation without a match, medical benefit and eligibility without a match, and compensation increase according to the CPI. That's something I feel good about.
I mean, I'm very much agreed with you that I don't think that dollar impact really makes a difference for people as far as your incentive to be on the board. But I like what Tierney said, is that it kind of sends a message that we value the amount of effort this is. And because it's not a huge financial burden, I mean, we're talking like $12,000.
I think it was like 5,000, like just under $5,000.
Well, I guess, bump, right? So it's 14,000.
14, it goes from 13,800 to
yeah,
14,630.
So it's a pretty trivial
18.
budgetary impact, but I feel like it sends a positive message of saying, hey, we get it. Like this, it's as much as we can do right now, but we care. So I do feel like it's worth doing that
But-
inflationary adjustment.
Isn't that what the CPI would do?
We do
Well,
that.
we could
later.
do, like, basically we get paid what we currently do, and then we do the CPI adjustment from there. Or
Yeah.
we could do a CPI adjustment that would be effectively since 2014. So that would bump us up to that 337 and 202. And then the CPI adjustment would kick in from there.
And then, I mean, yeah, okay.
So you're saying we would do the 337, 202, but then
Yeah.
the CPI kicks in when, at the end of the year?
Whatever next fiscal year. I don't know.
But the
when that-
337 and 202 would be right away. unless you
Yeah,
brought that.
for the new trustees.
And I'm hearing, it sounds like Luke and I are on similar pages, but I'm getting the sense that three of you are on different pages, and we could probably talk
As
about it.
someone-
No?
As someone who's being, I'll say, as someone who's being scrutinized quite heavily in the campaign, optics matter, and they really do. And I don't think it's terrible for the BOT to spend a penny on themselves right now, even if we just are about to close on the ski area and have done a great job, and people, whatever people think, we've done a great job and we're about to do this big thing. I think optics really matter. That's what I'm living right now.
I totally hear you, and I'm not in the same situation, so I can't relate. And I'm sure I would be, I don't know, I can't even imagine. But I think that you're right, that optics matter, but also people are always going to create their own narrative and rewrite the story. And the real facts here are that it's not like we're changing compensation for ourselves and just giving ourselves more money. It's new trustees in the future, new mayor in the future, and it might be you coming back, but we don't know. And so the facts are that it's not just the trustees are putting more money into their pockets. It's a decision that's made
Oh, I
for
believe,
future terms.
I agree. And I don't feel like that's how that will be seen.
Well, that might be true no matter when the decision is made, right? If it's us making the decision today and getting flack for it when people recreate the narrative, or it's 2 years from now and a different person making the decision that they get the flack. So I
Yeah.
guess it's who gets the flack.
Yeah, I mean, it's good logic. I just think if we had budgeted in the black to start the year out, I'd have a very different, I'd be thinking about this real differently. You know, we are about to have some big changes and I believe strongly they're going to benefit the town, and budgeting in the black might be something that we do most of the time, if not always. It's, you know, and that's the whole idea of this big effort. But that isn't what happened for 2026.
Yeah, and probably not for 2027 either. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
knowing what we know,
yeah.
if anything, we're gonna be spending more because we need to hire more people to help. Like help John, a deputy, and more people on the staff. How much is this increasing? Just like $10,000 or so? Or not even?
It goes from 14,800 to 18,630. So it's like just under 5,000.
Okay, that's not very much money.
What-
That could
I,
be,
I thought it was actually less than that. Like, so our current compensation is a total of 13,800. And if we
Oh,
do this,
13,800.
and then
I'm
if we
sorry.
do the CPI adjustment, it's 14,500. So it's not.
13,800. I'm sorry, it's 13,800 to 18,630. I apologize.
Can I clarify something on my staff report? On the inflation only, it's actually 14,580 plus 4,050. I
Yeah,
should have
yeah,
combined those.
yeah,
I'm
okay,
sorry.
yeah.
And
That's the
that's
number,
the
yeah.
number that's in my head. That's 18,630.
so what's the
Okay, okay.
difference, between what you're
So,
paying
yeah,
now?
about
5,000,
5,000.
4,000, $5,870. 4,870. Sorry.
Yeah, and there will be some payroll taxes, of course, on top of that, but that's minute.
These are the numbers you ran, Rita, before that had
Right.
the 7.1% in there.
Yep.
Yeah, $4,830.
Well, I think
Yeah,
we're
I
all
mean,
in
I feel like
agreement
just-
that we want the health insurance and the retirement. Right?
Yeah, we're all.
That is a big shift from
Yeah,
what we presently have.
I think we're all aligned on that. I do really feel like at least the inflation adjustment, like, it feels like a token bump, and feels a little bit like the least we can do for these incoming folks who we're going to ask a lot of. So
Well, yeah, and so since there's 5 pieces to this puzzle, let's go around and see, it doesn't have to be unanimous, so, yeah. What if, so I'm at 0 increase, but what are other folks thinking about, sticking at 250, 150, or going up to the inflation increase? So 2 at 0,
I'm leaning towards inflation.
inflation,
yeah, inflation for myself.
okay, Tanya, what do you, where
So
are you
I'm the
leaning?
decider here. I could go either way on it, really.
You can also think about it if you want.
Yeah, I'm
I
not
mean, we
sure,
could
'cause I
decide, but we could move to the
actually-
next ones.
Could go either way on it.
The next ones, I think we're more aligned on. And so we can move through those and then you can have some time to ponder. All right, so implementation timing. I think in that we are talking about doing something. I'm down with it happening, for the next, after this election, so May 2nd.
30 days to implement. It will take effect for trustees in May. Oh,
I'm gonna just pull up the state statute, but looked at this several times. But since you say, are you sure?
Yeah, right. I mean, I think we're all in agreement. We'd like it to. I'm just worried about the, the
Right.
legal side.
Be arguing for no reason.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
We might be too late already.
While she's looking at that, we can probably talk about the-
Yeah.
on the same pages.
So retirement participation, where do folks sit with that?
Yeah, participation, no match.
We got thumbs up here. Everyone saying yes to retirement participation with no match. Tanya?
Yeah.
Okay. And then medical benefit eligibility. And John, does that include what do you call it? Non-material, non-monetary, or is that its own medical benefit?
Medical benefits separate.
Okay, so the non-monetary, we're kind of, isn't one of these five. Okay. So,
Non-monetary,
Keep the passes.
yeah, unless you want to add something to it, then we would just keep the current.
yeah, the current
Yeah.
like workout passes at the community center. Okay. So medical benefit eligibility without a town match. How are we doing?
Yes,
We're
just actually, one quick clarifying question on that. Is it for the elected official only, or can they do themselves and dependents?
What I understood from our previous conversation was elected official only,
Okay.
but is that true? That's what I remember.
Just assume the latter would have more of an impact on the town. And then we're looking at adding possibly
The
more than 7
benefits.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, other people.
Even if
The other people are not written into the ordinance. That's a board decision. If there's no compensation, you could, in theory, pay the family rate for what that is. But we just would need to modify that ordinance a little bit.
and that would just be in the motion that you might help us with the language.
Actually modifying the ordinance a lot.
What?
But let's just see how this all comes out. So the state statute is that emoluments not to be increased, and it says emoluments of any member of the governing body, including mayor and trustee and councilman, shall not be increased or diminished during the term for which he has been elected or appointed, except in the case when you abolish an office. So, I mean, I really think that you're voting for it tonight, that it's effective in 30 days after publication. I think it passes muster state law.
Passes muster, and so in the beginning of the next term, well, shortly after the beginning of the
Right.
next term. So it apply to people that get elected in or appointed after next Tuesday. All right. Thank you.
So were we just
Tanya?
saying, we could do a family pass for the community center?
No, I'm
Nothing
sorry.
Nothing to do with community center.
No, not community center, but we could potentially do if we make this adjustment to the ordinance, we could potentially open the medical benefit eligibility. So we could take our $250 or $150 a month and put it towards our family insurance policy.
Oh, okay,
Well-
so that's good too, right? Obviously, it's gonna cost a lot more than
That's my
$250.
question is that what we're looking for, or is it for only the elected official? Because the elected official brings 7 new people on, adding the family could bring 30.
Sure. At
I
least.
think that
doesn't
is a
matter.
question. The other thing is that from an administrative standpoint, one of the challenges is figuring out what happens if you don't pay for your benefits. So there is some pieces that do need to be worked out on the medical benefits. I want to just repeat that because I think it's possible to do it, but that is going to be the question is what if somebody decides they can't afford whatever the cost of that plan is, and then what is the town going to do in that case?
Yeah, and we said, we think the medical benefits piece could be implemented outside of the election cycle. That's something we could say, okay, this one we need to maybe get a little more research on.
We could just say elected officials
Just
for
like-
now, and we could always change it.
Research the families.
Yeah, that's where I would go. It's
I
like
like that
elected
one.
official only, And then we can do research on if we want to extend that, but that seems like a good start.
Right, I like that. How's that sound, Tanya? That we a lot, we're voting to, well, we're on whether it be, we go with the medical benefit eligibility that you'd pay, the amount of money we're gonna pay into it only for the elected official, not the family at this point, but we would,
Right.
with no town contribution, but we would talk, during the year about learn more about the possibility of allowing family.
Yeah. Sure,
Okay.
makes sense. It'd be adding a lot of people, so we'd have to see. And then as far as if they don't make a payment, I would imagine just like everybody else, the coverage is no longer works for them anymore.
I think that's pretty complicated. Because think about, somebody who's on the board who is not paying money to the town. And that just becomes difficult for staff. I think that's a challenging issue.
You're seeing the entire implementation.
No, I'm saying that if they have to pay in for a family
Ah,
and somebody's not paying, the $1,000. That could be.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
that
it
could
would
become
get too
challenging.
complicated.
And then do you terminate their health benefits, but they're still on the board? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean,
That could happen for a single
Yeah.
person too, right? It's just more likely to happen for a
Right.
family because it's
Yeah.
higher
more
premium.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so you had talked before about like with the medical, is that the one where checks got to go one way and then come back? But the retirement, it isn't that way, right? The retirement
Right, you
could just be,
contribute your 5%.
is your,
or
your
whatever.
money goes into it, okay. Is there any heartburn about that? Just even if we don't do families, we just do the elected official about the person not paying?
I think the challenge is we probably need an agreement that everybody would abide by, and we'd have to figure out what that looks like, and we don't have that right now. But I think the thing is think about a staff person telling a board member who has that authority over them, what that might look like for that staff person. That could be a difficult conversation. So I think we just need to make sure that that's clear how that would work. That would maybe be one option where I'd say maybe phasing that in could be a great idea, but I'm just suggesting that as a possibility. Just so we can figure out what that process
The
looks
medical
like.
seems like a potential can of worms. Without having all the plans in place and procedures in place.
Will that be easier? Like say we shelve it for now and talk about doing that later in the year. Will that be easier to understand after the ski area, is part purchase and we're kind of adding hundreds of people and have a better sense of?
I think we could have a better idea what the costs are later this year. And the other option would be the implementation timeline could change maybe for this, but I think honestly, it would probably be a good idea to have a better idea about that part.
Okay. Does that make sense, everyone? Tanya, John's thinking that
Yeah,
maybe
it sounds
we're not
like
quite
we're
ready
gonna
with the
shelf
medical.
that until we have more information. I don't think it sounds that complicated. You guys do it for yourselves now. And is it
Nobody
that
pays
complicated?
into it now. Everybody's benefits that's benefited.
It comes out of their paycheck.
They make
Correct.
enough money that all the money
Yeah, they
can
make
be
enough money. No,
pulled.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just feel like we have to trust
We don't make
people.
enough money likely to cover a
No, of
premium.
course not.
And so
Uh-huh.
that's
The
ripple.
cheapest plan for one
wrinkle.
person is about $900.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that. Okay.
Boy.
Well,
A year, a
So,
month?
wait,
yeah,
a month. Yeah, of course. You
That's a
said
month,
year.
right?
I was about to freak out. A
Yeah.
year. Give me a job.
yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
I'll do anything. I'll sweep. All right. Well, I mean, it is an important thing though. I think, I know we've all probably been at a moment where we've been panicking about our health insurance. So
Oh, yeah.
those of us who are lucky enough to be able to pay for it, which that's what so we're going to shelf that until we get more information, regardless of what we
It
decide
seems
tonight.
like
Is that
Luke
okay?
has something he wants to say on it.
Well,
so
I
we'll
just
see what he
wondering
says.
if we can make it part of the ordinance and then determine what actually happens. Like, can the actual details of the implementation be worked out later, or is that something that has to be baked in from the start.
How about an HSA? Would that be something where the money just goes straight to that? Or is that not, is
We're
that
talking about
complicated?
switching one of our plans to
Okay.
allow that. Right now, our plans are premium based and they don't have deductibles. So that's why they're structured the way they are, but we're thinking about making a change to one of the plans that would allow
Well,
something
yeah,
like
but
that.
basically, if you only have $100 to give, that's what goes
Right.
in and that's it. And then there wouldn't have to be the checks back and forth. It would just, you would pull direct deposit, you would pull that.
We don't
that-
have that currently.
No, but we,
Right, but if
Chris,
the
we
ordinance
still
just
don't
said-
have that.
Well, it just, like, if the ordinance just said, like, the trustees are entitled to access to town health insurance coverage, and then you have the policy that's separate about which plans and in what way.
I don't think we're there yet, right? Is that what I'm
That's
hearing?
how it's kind of written right now.
Yeah.
But am I getting the sense, John, that maybe based on hearing our questions now, your recommendation might change? Are you,
I hadn't considered what would happen if somebody didn't pay.
okay.
That's the only piece that we need to figure out. I don't think it necessarily has to change your decision, but I do think it's a serious question that needs to be researched a little bit.
Can I push you a little bit more and say, would your recommendation be to kick that part to shelf it for now?
Or just to wait, how
just-
how about, we'll say it as,
Yeah.
would your recommendation be that we research that and talk
I'd-
about doing
I'd
that
love to
during
have
the
an
year?
answer for you on that.
Okay.
before we-
During the strategic planning, maybe?
Yeah.
Reading a lot about kicking cans on Facebook, so, yeah, which is not which we don't do, actually. All right, so I think kind of, yes to 3, no for now to 4. Number 5, whether compensation should be increased according to the CPI.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Tanya? So no increase, well, either no
Well,
increase or
I
some
mean, I
increase
know
now, but,
that's, it's, what is the average gonna be, like 5% a year?
John, any quick?
3%?
Just a sec.
Jennifer just said it's 2.5 right now, and I think 2.5 to 3.5 is reasonable.
Okay.
That would kick in at the end of the year or the beginning of the year.
So like,
Yeah, it would be through our appropriation. You wouldn't appropriate, that's the rate of it. It would increase, but it would take place on that January 1st date
Okay,
every year.
so I think we got thumbs up in the room on that, Tanya.
yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Okay. So I think we're clear on, timing, assuming, yeah, I think we've learned that timing would work. Yes to retirement participation. We're gonna research number 4, medical benefit eligibility. And then yes to compensation increasing with CPI. And then we are, presently on number 1, base compensation. We have 2 of us that we're saying, let's just stay at 250, 150. And 2 that are saying go up to the inflationary increase of 337 and 202.
Can I
Tanya,
just ask a quick question? You
Yeah.
guys, I just want to make sure that you guys still feel that way, knowing that we're not doing the medical benefits right now.
I do. Yeah, I mean,
Cool.
yeah. Yeah, and it's not all like just because I'm running for a campaign. It just feels crappy with a red budget, budgeting in the red and then doing this right now. It just seems like not the time for me. Yeah. But all for doing it when the time's right.
And I think whatever we choose to do tonight, certainly after we, later this summer, when we have a better idea of what we've gotten, growth of the town, staff, things like that, taking a look at this again and trying to figure out, hopefully having a better idea of our budget picture coming into 2027 and reassessing what this should look like. Absolutely. Discussion?
No.
I was gonna say, I move that the Board of Trustees adopt ordinance 889, amending section 225 of the Netherlands Code establishing compensation for future terms of office with the following components determined by the board. Maintaining our current base compensation, implementation taking effect of the ordinance, allowing future elected officials to be included in town retirement, no town match, and adjusting all future compensation according to the Denver Aurora Lakewood
That's the kill.
Index for all.
Second? More discussion or more discussion? Okay, Macy?
What?
Trustee, oh,
Sorry, do we need to explicitly say we're going to remove, because in the ordinance, there is the section on the medical benefit participation. Do we need to explicitly say we're removing that, or can we leave that in there and we can work out the detail later? Is that,
I think we were
What was
removing.
what was the question?
so this would, in the actual ordinance, this would be section 225D, about the medical
Yep.
benefit participation, which as it's worded right there seems
Yeah.
general enough that we wouldn't need to remove it, but I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that we're clear.
So if you don't want medical benefits, you have to say that that's excluded.
Friendly amendment to
Yeah, because to be revisited at a later date, but I think for the clean ordinance now, we're all deciding it needs more research. John's realized he hadn't thought about someone just not paying. 'Cause
Yeah, I amend my motion to the medical benefit eligibility for all town elected.
Macy, you got that?
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful to just to say,
Start again.
Mayor, do you want to do it, or would you like me to say what I understand? Okay, so you're approving the ordinance with the current base compensation, which is, let's just say this, so we have it for the record, it's $150 per month for trustees. Mayor is $250
A month.
a month. And then you will be implementing for the new members of the board retirement, they can participate in the retirement. New members will receive a CPI adjustment. There will be no health benefits for new members, and you will also keep in the community center process.
But we did add the retirement piece, right?
Yeah, which I said.
Okay,
Retirement added, but without any town match.
Correct, yes.
okay, and no medical benefits, yep. And then. Thank you. I think so. Macy. Are you there?
Yeah.
I could never type that fast. So you are amazing.
Thank you for that, Attorney Matson. Trustee Larson,
Yes.
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
No.
and Mayor Billy.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion's approved.
thank you. Appreciate that. The motion passes. Thanks everyone for your work. And with that, we'll go to our first one and only a discussion item of the evening, the extended producer responsibility application. Do you mind contacting Andrew? Coming back to the meeting. Cass, is that? Oh yeah, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Be back at 8:37.
Yep, exactly.
This isn't over yet, this meeting. No, it's not. This is back and forth.
Won't be now.
Sustainability. Lord.
Macy. It's Macy's now. Almost gotta have Macy.
This is gonna work. No. Cassie's.
So good. Do we need Macy or can we proceed if Cass is? What's that? Oh. Scary. Blue light. Smart. Macy, when you're ready, we're ready. It's 8:37. We can continue. Cass, when you're ready. We're ready.
Yes, thank you. So I will be talking about the extended producer responsibility education and outreach funding application. So this is also referred to as EPR, which is something that I have brought before you before. And this is essentially, just a recap, this is a statewide policy that's requiring producers to pay into a program, and then the funds are redistributed to recycling and composting programs in order to improve infrastructure and also cut down on costs for taxpayers and people who are using curbside recycling programs. So their intention is to make recycling completely free and as convenient as trash pickup statewide by 2030. One of the uses for the funds is also education and outreach to let people know about these changes and different programs that are ongoing with recycling and composting in our area. The town, as you know, does not currently operate any waste recycling or compost hauling or processing services. We do have private haulers that operate in Nederland, and then we have the Nederland Transfer Station, which is operated by Boulder County. Boulder County also operates the recycling center, which is where our recycling from the transfer station ends up. And then we have the composting unit at the transfer station that is all in vessel. So the organics go in there, they get composted, and then the final product is also distributed from there. So that's a different, that all would fall under different funding for processes. Right now, we are talking about education and outreach, which is the only form of funding through this program that the town of Nederland is eligible for. The application that I referred to is due on April 13th, and this is essentially the second step in this process. So the first one was submitting an interest form, which you directed me to do in January, I believe. And now we are looking at a application, which would tell the organization Circular Action Alliance, or CAA, what we intend to do with the funding and how we want it to be used, essentially. So we have a few different options, which we discussed last time as well, just to make sure you were aware that there were a few different routes that we could take. So the first option would be doing a joint service agreement, or a JSA, with Boulder County for the education and outreach services. So this would involve signing an IGA with Boulder County for these services. And then when I submit the application, I would indicate that we are doing a JSA with Boulder County, and they would then ask for reimbursement directly from CAA. So the town would not be involved in the transfer of funds, but we would be involved in determining what the education and outreach scope of services would be. And that would all be brought before you if we do go this route and outlined in the IGA. And we would ask for a vote on that to determine if that is something that you want to continue with. So the scope of services would span for 19 months. So that is the current service schedule that CAA has. And then at the end of the 19 months or in December 2027, we could explore a different type of service agreement if the town wanted to perform the education and outreach themselves and receive the money themselves, or if we wanted to continue working with Boulder County or other options as well. I've listed out here the scope of services from Boulder County. I did today receive a more detailed scope of work, so if you have more questions on any of these services that they said that they would provide, I do have more details that I can provide. But essentially it's direct mailers, social media content, public meetings to let our residents know about the changing guidelines or the services that are provided to them. Recycling center tours, tabling at community events, presentation to either the Board of Trustees or the Sustainability Advisory Board, and then reporting on all of these activities and sending that to CAA as part of the requirements. So that is one option. Another option would be a town-led education and outreach effort where we would receive the full funding, or we would be eligible for the full funding, which over the 19 months would equal $3,483.33. And that is based on a flat rate fee of $183.33 per month, because our jurisdiction has fewer than 1,000 households. So that is what CAA is offering for the flat rate. And so we would receive, we could receive reimbursement for our activities from CAA. And they would likely be very similar to what Boulder County suggested in their scope of services. It's just that it would have town staff coming up with those materials, doing the work to actually reach out to people, do the tabling, do the presentations, and all of those things. And we would likely still try and work with Boulder County, but they would not do any of the activities in terms of them actually doing that work. It would be more of a collaborative effort to make sure that we are giving out the correct information about the transfer station and other programs. And then the third option would be to not participate at this time. That essentially means that we would not receive funding. We would not be eligible for funding, and we could potentially apply before December 2027 and receive funding if we do change our minds. But most likely what will happen is that CAA would not allow a new agreement until 2028. So that would be, a year and a half of not being eligible for these funds and missing out on being able to educate our residents about recycling and composting programs and opportunities. So for the next steps, the application must be submitted by April 13th. If you would like to work with Boulder County on the education and outreach, then we would ask for an IGA from them and share the full scope of services with you. So you have a better idea of the timeline for these activities. And then that would need to be signed at some point before or by the summertime. And then they would likely start implementing in June or July at the earliest. And then we would need to revisit an agreement by December 2027. Right now, I'm asking for essentially direction in terms of nods of which way you would like to head with this, because this is a discussion item. So my staff recommendation is that we would submit an application to CAA to divert that education and outreach funding to Boulder County, and work with the county staff to develop the IGA for the services. At this time, staff, which would essentially be myself, does not feel that I have the capacity to develop these materials, perform the outreach, and submit for reimbursement through this program for the amount that we are allowed, and also for the just other things that I am currently working on. Yeah, so that's my recommendation.
I have a question. This is
for
Tanya.
it.
What exactly are we educating and outreaching on, and what services will change in Netherland after this funding gets allocated and we educate and outreach?
Yeah, that's a great question. So CAA also supplies funding for services and operations. And like I said, Town of Netherland is not eligible for that because we don't offer services. However, the transfer station would likely change what they offer, or they may change their guidelines. And those types of changes would need to be communicated to residents because the transfer station is the main you know, place that they take their waste and their recycling. So if there were any changes, like the transfer station staff in Boulder County would know best in terms of when those changes will happen and how to communicate those. Yeah,
That's it?
is that
That's it? Just in case they change their, something in their facility? We're gonna have like
that's
all these tables and social media outreach and mailers. I don't want any mailers. That seems against what we're talking about here.
That's very fair. I think the other aspect to it is also any guidelines that change based on like the state and what they are working with CAA on, because I'm just not sure what those things will be because the funding hasn't been released. Like we're all kind of in the same timeline of applying for this funding now, and then changes will be made kind of down the road. So in terms of education and outreach, it's just in order to stay on top of those changes and make sure that residents are being informed. And that also has to do with private haulers. So if, Western Disposal or someone were to change what they offer, like they also have a pool of money that they would be provided if they apply for it to provide education and outreach to their customers. So it's a similar idea. It's just with the transfer station.
Alright.
And we don't have to do mailers if that is something that the board does
Well, I mean,
not
it
want
sounds
to
like
do. Or
if we give it to Boulder County, they're just gonna do their thing, whatever they
I-
do.
Not necessarily. I think with the IGA, we have say in what these activities could be. So if mailers are not something that the board wants as part of the scope of services, then we can ask them to take that out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want that just because it's just creating more waste, and the whole point's to not create waste.
Mhm.
But I'm ambivalent, so whatever everybody else wants to do, it's fine.
Thanks, Tanya. Good point about the mailers. Other folks, clarifying questions for Cass?
Yes, just to be clear, you've talked to Boulder County and yeah, okay, perfect. They're just, this is the scope of service that they gave you as a suggestion. They know how much funds we anticipate to have. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
The Boulder County Recycling Center tours, that's for who?
Yeah, so that could be for our town employees, town residents, town board members. It's kind of up to us how we want to offer those. And I think the idea is if we kind of figure out the logistics, we could maybe get like a busload of people down to the recycling center to do a tour.
Yeah, those kind of questions, like, does that be like a school field trip or is that?
Right. I think that could be part of it for sure if we want, but I know that Boulder County also does field trips with schools, so that might be something that we can ask them if they do that for like Netherlands schools. And if we want to replace the just general recycling center tours with school tours.
And I feel like I should know this better, but our recycling at the transfer station goes where when it's,
To the Boulder County Recycling Center.
okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Ocean.
My kids did the tour this year at the recycling center
Down,
from that elementary.
down in Boulder.
No, here.
Yeah, the one up here.
Yeah.
I think they've gone down below.
Did,
too.
have they?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I mean, I would just say that with, I'm with Tanya and, direct mailers are just more junk, but if they're that getting kids to, go do a recycling center tour has a lot of impact on how kids think about recycling and, probably has more impact on what gets recycled down the road than most anything else on this list.
More questions? If not, we'll go to public comment. There's no one in the room and some folks online, mostly who are in the room. Any public comment? Hearing none, we'll come back to this discussion item. And just to, staff recommendation, staff recommends, this is on page 44 and into 45. Staff recommend submitting an application to CAA, divert education and outreach funding to Boulder County and work with county staff to develop an IGA for the services. Staff do not have the capacity to develop the materials, perform the outreach and submit for reimbursement at this time. And then I did have a question. John, do we have, I know we got rid of our big IGA with the county. Do we have any IGAs with the county right now? I guess probably with law enforcement.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. I signed one.
Yeah, Sheriff's Office, co-responder, and in theory, NEPADAC.
NEPADAC, okay. But they're all separate. So
Yes.
this kind of separate IGA is
Yeah. We just bring all IGAs, since they're a contract, we bring those before you all.
yeah. And did they all go to like different division? This is
Yes.
just kind of a big, is it efficient to have all these IGAs? But yes, because they're all going to different parts of the
Yeah,
county.
so that we have the Sheriff's Office one, and then the co-responder is with, I don't know exactly, I think it's with, I'm not exactly sure
Yeah,
where that. how that
another
section works.
agency.
And we have the transportation is who we do NEPADAC with,
Okay,
but ultimately are the commissioners for that.
okay, okay. So this is a separate IGA though, is what you'd like?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They're all scoped so differently. I think it does help to have narrower scopes related to the agreement, so it's just more transparent and everything.
Okay. Thanks. And the question before the board is, on page 45, is does the board want staff to pursue option 1, 2, or 3? Option 1 being the JSA with Boulder County for education outreach and services. Option 2, town-led education and outreach and do not participate. Sounds like the recommendation is option 1. Questions, comments, guidance? A
Just-
thumb,
Just to kind of,
a nodding
re-
thumb.
repeat what I said, yeah. Less mailers and more recycling center tours. Option 1.
So again, we got nods in the room for option 1. 5 nods. Tanya,
Yeah,
goes with the staff recommendation. Okay, great.
Yeah.
What else do you need from us, Cass?
If nothing really, unless you have other feedback for the scope of services. I noted down the no direct mailers and emphasis on school tours.
No other feedback?
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it. Awesome. So with that, we will go to public comment on non-agenda items. And we were kind of expecting there would be, but they are not here, so now thinking there won't be. But any mice have public comments on non-agenda items in the room? Okay. Chris Kelly, any comment? If not, other business.
I have
Tanya,
other
think you-
business.
Yeah, go for it.
I talked with John and Jennifer Matson today about just like, there's just been, I mean, there's at least 3 or 4 properties in the business district that have been abandoned, basically. They haven't been put to use in some for decades. And it bothers me a lot. I see more and more of it happening, all up and down our highway. And, but mainly there's a few of them that have been really irking me. And so, we talked about some ideas of how we can discourage these property owners from just letting their businesses go fallow and not contributing to our town and our, just, it looks bad, in my opinion. So one idea that, Jennifer came up with was a registration process that if you're gonna have, an abandoned property in the business district, that it would be required to get registered and have a safety inspection. And all that will come with a fee. And the safety inspection, I feel like is super important because, I mean, we don't know if these mice are chewing up these wires, behind these walls, if they're live, if there could be another fire in town, if gas lines are still active. Like, I feel like there's a lot of variables involved with when you just let a building and nobody goes in there for years and years. And so I was wondering if there was any interest in asking town staff to create a draft of something. Obviously, they would have to define probably abandoned and all that. It will circle back into our code that has things about that already. So that's all I wanted to see if you wanted town staff to come up with something for you guys later to vote on. I won't be here.
So we're just looking for a nod. and
Yeah, I
Tanya,
think that's right. Just so they can come up with something and then you guys could debate it.
Yeah, because it sounds like a vacancy tax is more complicated, but this
Can't
is,
have
this
it,
is
I
a
guess,
way- this
unless
is a
we're
home rule.
home rule, yeah. But just some sort of, for these properties to know, like, hey, we acknowledge that you're not contributing. We acknowledge that this could be a danger, for reasons I listed. I'm sure there's other reasons it could be dangerous to have, and it's not what we're encouraging. And so we need you to register, have a safety inspection, and pay the fee that will come with town staff doing that. It's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna change anything, but at least having a safety inspection would make me feel a little better about some of these places.
I mean, I for one am for putting this on a future agenda. I think this
thank you.
is very important. People have been asking for this for a while, actually, and we're not able to do that tax directly. I know that.
Yeah, it
even
was a good idea of
Christian
Jennifer's.
Vanek had brought it up with me, like, hey, the county does it. Why isn't the town doing it? So, it makes sense.
Oh,
What do
yeah,
others
he's
think?
actually fixing things up, so that's good.
I think it's a great idea. I won't be here for the future agenda, but I would love to see it added to the agenda.
Cool.
And then
Same.
I'd listen.
Yeah, I'd like to see the town explore options further into that.
I think we got 6 nods on that one. Good.
Oh, great.
Thanks for bringing
Good.
that to us.
Well, good,
Yes.
I'm glad, I've been harping about it for a while, so I'm glad we came up with at least something to get the ball rolling, so that's great. Thanks, guys. That's
Yeah.
it.
Welcome. So I have another piece of business. Something we talked about a couple weeks ago, but I want to bring it up again. the Dark Sky Initiative. I definitely had, just I flew over Flagstaff one night and it was just remarkable to not see a city as you're flying over it. And then I guess what made me think more about it though was, just timing, meeting with Tebow and having them talk about, their new build and kind of really, in my opinion, having them ask kind of questions about lighting that made me think they're really wanting to do as little as possible and, go as, whatever. Well, I mean, it made me concerned. And I know we're at a point now with Tebow will build something or someone will build something. The overlay district will pass and things will eventually be built. So I feel like it is time sensitive. I know it was brought up that it's not on the strategic plan, but the reality is we did the strategic plan in 2023. It really was for 2 years. We decided not to do another one this year because of the ski area. We're going to wait till after the ski area. We also, when we did it, we said if other things come up, we just can't always be tied to the plan. If
Yeah.
something makes sense, it's worth talking about. And so I
Yeah.
would like us to put it on the agenda for the future. I did talk to Planning Commission and they have a pretty full docket, but they said, if town staff has bandwidth for it, then, they could work it into their schedule. And I think it was even brought up in their meeting. Is that true, John? And the PC?
Britt, I'm not
Did-
positive
did-
about that.
Britt, did you bring it up at all or am I mistaken?
Yeah, it was brought up because I recommended if this is gonna be talked about, there's lots of questions I have for the board and the PC that
Great.
need to be thought about from a code enforcement perspective.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think there is bandwidth for it and there would be good, it would be good to get clarification from you all and make our code more clear if that's something the board and PC are both interested in.
Great. So I'm just looking for 4 nods to put it on an agenda.
Yes.
1, 2, 3.
Billy, can you clarify for strategic planning? I thought we were just postponing it until the new election. So I thought that was going to be happening this year. Is that not happening?
Yeah,
now?
no, yeah, but we really postponed it until after we bought the ski area, which turns out is
At the same time.
we didn't know at that time that it was going to be the same month as the election. We were thinking that would happen sooner, but so it really will be this summer.
The summer,
It's
okay.
the summer of 26. Like it really would have fallen, if we had stayed on our cycle, it could have fallen in the summer of 25.
Mhm.
But with everything happening with ski area, I think
Right.
it didn't make sense to do it.
Right.
So, we're still going off a 2023 one, which, Tanya and I at least were like, we want to be able to talk about other things when they come up. We don't want to only be able to tie to this. So,
Well,
Tanya, what are
yeah,
your
I don't
thoughts?
even think Eldora was on the strategic plan.
No,
So,
no,
yeah,
we didn't
so
know
we
about
definitely
that
can
for-
deviate from it and we should. And I have a full nod in agreement on this because
cool,
it's overdue.
Great. Great. So we got 6 nods on that too. So thank you. So one other
Can I ask
business, I don't know,
Can I ask you a clarifying really quick?
Yep.
Is that a nod to go start working work session with planning commission, or do you guys want to see that again first?
I think the process, as I kind of understood it and even talked it through with Jim, is it would come to us first
Okay,
as a
Just scope it out.
discussion, and then the board, the new board, will decide next steps, and it would, logically go back to them.
perfect.
Then there would be a
Thank you.
good chance for
Commission.
Britt to ask a lot of the questions and get it organized in a way that you guys could get the answers later.
Right, and just to clarify, I think my nod is more specifically for a discussion item to figure out, is this work? Do we want to spend all of our time doing this right now, or is it a lower priority? So that would
Yeah.
be my nod is more just step one, but yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, at that point, we'll decide, is this something we do now, or, we might be just
We can bring that
drowning
forward.
in ski area stuff at that point,
Well,
yeah.
I
We
mean,
can
I don't
bring
think it would
forward
take
similar
that
to the
long.
compensation question.
I don't either. I think it was, go ahead.
I was saying we could bring it through the same process. We brought the compensation question,
Great.
question and some background and discussion and all that kind
Yeah.
of thing. So
Yeah, I think
Yeah, I
it
don't-
could be actually straightforward.
Yeah, because it's already something that's got the guidelines for it. So it's just a matter of how to code enforce it.
Yeah, we have some downlighting requirements, but yeah. So yeah.
Oh my God,
so
even
thank
when the
you. I
power
think
was
we're-
out, people had lights on.
Yes, they did. And the other businesses. So I thought the normal thing was that you all would come to the 21st meeting. but you don't have to. And I don't know exactly, like, we want to say thank you. I don't know if you're going to, please do. I guess that goes to me too, because I may not be on the board, but like, we just want to recognize Tanya for 6 years of
Oh, thank you.
devotion and time and energy and passion for the town. We appreciate everything you've put into being the trustee and
Thanks.
being willing to do it and do it again, being willing to do it initially in COVID and then doing it again for 4
Yeah,
more
that's where I got
years.
addicted to the online. Couldn't go back.
Well, how about you were a trustee? You are a trustee, so thank you
Yeah, thank you guys.
for everything. And
Yeah.
Tierney, thank you for the last almost 2 years. Appreciate it. And
Thanks. I have a couple quick extra items as well.
yes,
As
okay,
well
cool.
as Thank you to
Yeah,
Tierney
more other items. It's cool.
and Tanya. First of all, our Mayor Pro Tem, Nicole, she's not here tonight because it is her birthday.
Yay.
So happy birthday to Nicole.
And Nikki?
And second of all, not such a happy note, as some of you may know, Roy Young, who is the owner of the
Oh.
Rock Shop Nature Zone in town, longtime resident, has recently passed away,
Oh,
somewhat unexpectedly, but
Oh.
there's a memorial on the 23rd, I think. I can get back to us on exact details there if anybody's interested, but he's a lifelong friend of mine. He bought the house that I was born in on Garwood
wow.
Road. So known him since.
yeah,
I
I'm
was a
sorry.
kid.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Luke.
So it's going to be a shift. Is Kate, who's his partner, who still runs Nature Zone, and also a lot of, Roy also started EcoCycle.
Is it okay?
So
Oh, really?
yeah, so Kate will still be keeping up the shop and all that, but yeah, Roy's got a house on Cold Springs, and what will happen there, but anyway, just a little memorial for Roy.
And the memorial's when? The date's set?
I think it's April 23rd. I need to double check, and I will let everybody know if they want to go.
Thanks, Luke.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Any other business? Motions?
I move to adjourn.
Oh, that must feel good.
Second.
Second
Nice.
it.
Thank you.
Mayor Bully,
Yes.
Trustee Miller,
Yes, please.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
Trustee Jocelyn,
Yes.
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
and Trustee Larson.
Yes.
Thank you. The meeting is adjourned at 9:08 PM.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your work.
Bye.